Hey Valley Middle, welcome back to another G67 math video. Tonight we're going to be solving two-step equations, but let's start with our trivia question of the night. Just for fun, who or what are the Tar Heels? We'll be back with the answer to that after instruction. Tonight officially our target, I can solve two-step equations with rational numbers. Let's do this thing. All right, my two sons belong to Planet Fitness. They pay a monthly fee plus a yearly membership of $45. The total yearly outlay is $165. Write and solve a two-variable equation to determine how much they have to pay for each month. All right, well, they pay 12 months a year, so there's the 12, and they pay a monthly price. They pay once a year, $45, and the total is $165. So I've got my equation, I've got it all labeled here, so I know what everything stands for. What I want to do is get M by itself. I want to isolate it. In order to do that, first we have to get rid of this dangling 45. So we're going to subtract that 45 from both sides of that equation. And when we do that, we're going to start to have isolated that variable a little bit more. The plus 45 and the minus 45 cross out or cancel out. And what I'm left with is 12m on one side equals 120. 165 minus 45. So this is multiplication. I have to divide to get the answer, to isolate it further. So I'm going to divide both sides by 12, and those 12s will cancel off, leaving me m equals 120 divided by 12, which is 10. The answer seems reasonable, but let's plop it in and check it to make sure it works. 12 months times $10 would be $120, plus $45 would be $165. Perfect. It works out just fine. All right, before we get started with the instruction and some more examples, let's just go over a couple of quick things. A two-step equation, that's an equation where you have more than one step in it. The first step in these equations tonight will either be adding or subtracting. Then the second step will be multiplying or dividing like we've done in past lessons. We're going to be using the inverse operation tonight. If it says minus 2, we're going to add 2 to get rid of it. If it says if it's a multiplication equation, we're going to use division to solve it, and vice versa. A couple of things to remember tonight when multiplying and dividing negative numbers. If you've got a negative times a negative or a negative divided by a negative, that's going to give you a positive answer. A negative times a positive or a negative divided by a positive, that'll give you a negative answer. The short way to remember it, if you've got an even number of negative symbols when multiplying or dividing, that's going to give you a positive result. Positive answer. If you've got an odd number of negative symbols when multiplying or dividing, you're going to have a negative product or quotient. All right, so let's take a look at the second problem of the night. We have minus 4c plus 2 equals 10. Again, our goal, get c by itself. Let's first get rid of this 2. So we're going to go ahead and subtract 2 from both sides. Our 2's on this side cancel off, leaving us with minus 4c equals 8. Now we have a one-step equation. It's a multiplication equation, so we will solve it by dividing. We'll divide both sides by that negative 4. These negative 4's will cancel each other out, so we're left with 8 divided by a negative 4. Well, we have a positive divided by a negative. We've got an odd number of negative symbols here, so my answer is going to be 8 divided by 4 is 2, and it's going to be a negative 2 because there's only one of them, that odd number. Let's plop it in and see if it works. We have a negative 4 times a negative 2. Just put negative 2 in place of the c. That's what it is. We have a negative times a negative. Negative times a negative right here is going to give me a positive answer. Or 4 times 2 equals 8. And it's positive because you've got an even number of negative symbols there. Okay? I know I keep banging on those. I just want to really instill that whole negative times a negative as a positive in your head. All right, let's move on. Here's our last instructional problem, then I'm going to cut you loose for 3. M divided by a negative 10 plus 2 equals a negative 7. All right, we've got to get rid of this addition piece first here. So we've got a plus 2 on this side. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract 2 from both sides of the equation. These 2's will cancel out. And what we're left with is a nice little one-step equation. We've got m over 10 over a negative 10 equals a minus 9. Or as I like to think of it, something divided by a negative 10 equals a negative 9. All right, let's slide down here. And what we have to do, if we have division here, let's multiply both sides by 10. I'm sorry, we're going to multiply both sides by negative 10. These negative 10s will cross off, and what we end up with is a negative 9 times a negative 10. Well, that's a negative times a negative, so we've got m left on this side, and the product here, our answer is 90. Positive 90. All right, let's pop it in and see if it works in the equation. Here we have 90 divided by 10, so that's 9, and it's a negative 9 because there's an odd number of symbols there, so I have negative 9. I add 2, yes, I do have a negative 7 left over. All right, time for you to try this problem. Go ahead and pause the video, and here's your first of 3. Go. All right, let's see how you did. I wrote it out like this. I like it as a fraction bar. You can do it the other way. But the first thing I did, get rid of this minus 2. I added 2 to both sides. So what I ended up with was 13. Negative 13 plus a 2 is a negative 11. So I have k over 12 equals a negative 11. Now I'm going to take this is division, so I'm going to multiply both sides. Whoops. Where are they? Gotta see. Oh, I got it set up down here. I'm going to multiply both sides of this equation by 12. These 12s will cross off on this side, leaving me isolating that k, and I have a negative 11 left times the 12, which is a negative 132. If I pop that in to my original equation, I've got negative 132 divided by 12 minus 2 does equal a negative 13. Okay? If you wanted to check that in your calculator and you're not sure, I'm just going to show you one more time quickly how you pop that into a calculator. Come on, calc, load up. Here we go. So we'll go ahead and put that 132 in first, and we're going to make that negative. We're going to divide that by 12. We're going to subtract 2. There's your negative 13. Okay? Just a refresher on how to put that in and check your work with your calculator. All right, how about this problem? Go ahead and give it a shot. I'm back. All right, first step, we're going to have to get rid of 5 from both sides of the equation. So we're going to subtract 5, and what we're left with after these guys cross off with is 5t equals a negative 20. And we're going to divide by 5. What we're left with there is t equals a negative 4. We have a negative 20 divided by 5. We have a negative 4. Let's pop it in, see if it works. We have 5 times a negative 4. That's going to give me a negative 20 plus a positive 5. Yes, that is a negative 15. All right, one more. We're almost there. N divided by a negative 11 plus 7 equals 4. Go ahead and give this a shot. All right, let's just see what you did there. All right, so first thing, we'll go ahead and, sorry, I'm going to do this. First thing, we'll subtract the 7, there we go, from both sides. These guys cancel themselves out. Oops. They cancel themselves out. You're left with 4 minus 7, which is a negative 3. So here's my new equation. N divided by a negative 11 equals a negative 3. And then I've got to multiply by a negative 11. I guess it's right here. These guys crossed each other out. I got negative 3 times a negative 11. That's negative times a negative. That's going to give me a positive 33. So N is left over here. 33 is left here. Let's pop it in and see if it works. 33 divided by a negative 11, that's going to be 3, but it's going to be a negative 3 because of this. I have an odd number of negative symbols, so a negative 3. And if I add that to 7, or I add 7 to that negative 3, we end up with a positive 4 as an answer. So that did work out. Here are your 2 tickets to the show problems. Go ahead and take a second to copy those down. And your trivia question, who or what is a Tar Heel? Well, the Tar Heels from the University of North Carolina, and you can see a little bit of tar on the heel. That's really what they're talking about. It says that one legend has the nickname being applied to the state's residents as long ago as the Revolutionary War. According to the story, the troops of British General Cornwallis were fording what is now known as the Tar River between the Rocky Mount and Brattleboro when they discovered that tar had been dumped into the stream to impede their crossing. When the soldiers finally got across the river, they found their feet were completely black with tar. Their observation was then that anyone who waded through North Carolina rivers would acquire tar heels, and that led to that name being used. of Tar Heels. I didn't know where it actually had come from. But I do know who the most famous Tar Heel is. Well, one of the most famous. Here's the man, the myth, the legend himself, Michael Jordan, was a Tar Heel. That's where he went to college. All right, thanks for listening. Have a great night. Bye.